Hi, I'm Tracy from XLACE, and this is a quick demonstration for you on how to use dependent data validation. So what I mean by this is we all know how to put pick lists in, so we can just put data validation where we can select off a list. What this is going to do is take it one step further, whereas in the example I'm going to show you, we're going to have countries and cities. So if we select a country, the next pick list will give me only the cities that are from that country. So it's quite clever and it's very, very powerful to use. So I'm just going to share the spreadsheet so you can see this. So we basically have here a list of cities and countries. Obviously, I have sorted this in country order. Now, this is important for the dependent data validation to work. So this column is all the countries, these are all the cities, so they obviously offset with each other. So in these two cells here, if I want to be able to, in the green cells, put a pick list in, so I can select the country here and select the city here. Obviously, the country is really straightforward. The way I do this is give this range of cells a named range. So I'd highlight all of that column there, give that a name range called country. In fact, there's an easier way to do that. Let's highlight all the cells, including the heading. And then in the formulas tab, we can go into create from selection using the top row. So what this is going to do is it's going to create a, let me just scroll up. Oh no, I can't. I'll tick top row and click OK. So what it's now done is it's created a pick list with country being the name of the name range and the first row in the name range being row 3. So if I just go into name manager, you can see there's our name range called country, and you can see it starts from cell C3 to C32. So it uses the heading at the top for the name. Okay, so we now have our name range. In this first green cell here, I can include data validation now in the normal way. So I'd literally go into data validation, and here I'm going to allow not any value, but I'm going to restrict it to be a list. In the source, now that we have our lovely name range, I can press F3 on the keyboard, and it'll give me a list of all the name ranges. I only have one, so I'm going to restrict what can be entered into this cell into anything that appears in that country column. So if I click OK, and then click OK again, you'll then see that a little arrow has appeared in that column. Now, years ago, in fact, I say years ago, up until about a month ago, this wouldn't have worked. What that would have given us on this pick list now is every occurrence, it would have given me Australia 3 times, Brazil 3 times. But one of the changes that Microsoft have gifted us with recently, thank you, is that it now condenses and removes duplicates from your data validation list. So this is super powerful. So what we would have been doing before is probably using a unique formula to strip out just the individual countries, so that they weren't duplicated, whereas data validation takes care of that for us now. Yay. So that's a bit of good news. So now we can just select the country from this column. So if I select, let's go for Brazil, just so I can see those 3 there. What would be great now is if I can put a pick list in here. So obviously, if I use a pick list looking at the column with city, I'm going to have all of the cities, regardless of which country has been selected. So what we want to be able to do is narrow down this data validation, so it only gives me the country of the city, sorry, that relate to Brazil. So it's literally going to give me these 3 in the pick list. So to do this, we're going to use a bit of a clever formula within the data validation. So before I put it in the data validation, I want to show you what it is. So I've already put it in here so I can demonstrate it to you. That is the big fat scary formula. People hate this. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you what this means. So if I start editing that formula, it pops up underneath, don't forget, with how the formula works, the syntax, if you like. So you can see that the bits are bolded at the moment. That's the bit that I'm currently on. So that's the title of offset. Okay, so we're using an offset formula. The B3 part, so B3 obviously at this point relates to this cell here. So that is the reference. So this is the starting point. So that's what we're saying, start from this cell here. The next part of the formula is rows. So if I click rows there, it will highlight all of the bits above that refer to calculating the rows. So that is calculated by doing a match of E3. So the country is in cell E3, so it's going to match Brazil, and it's going to look in column C, C3 to C32, which is this country here, this country column. We could have actually put in the name range there of country, but just for visibility, I haven't just yet. So this is going to match Brazil within column C, and 0 gives an exact match, and then it's going to -1 from it, okay? So what the result of that is, if I highlight all of that again, it should pop up above and tell me what the answer is. The answer is 3. So what this is saying is start from cell B3 and then take 3 rows, okay? So that's counted basically how many times Brazil occurs in column C. The next part of the formula is calculating how many columns. Well, columns is 0 because we only want it to look in one column, which is the column it's looking in anyway. So we don't need it to go across any columns. So that's 0. The next part is calculating the height. So the height is a countif. So this counts in column C, the country again, how many it can match E3. So E3 being Brazil. So again, it counts how many occurrences of Brazil. So it's saying that there are 3 occurrences. So essentially what it's doing is saying go to cell B3. So start in cell B3 and then take 3 rows, no columns, and 3 rows down. Okay. So essentially, if I was to look at the result of that formula, I think I've got, okay, the result of that formula would give me, if we just put it into the spreadsheet, the 3 as a list. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that exact formula. I'm going to highlight all of that. I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go into this cell here. I'm going to go into data validation. And I'm going to choose list again, same as we did for the country. But in the source, I'm going to paste in that formula. Okay, so that's all in there. Trust me, it is. I'll show you again in a second. So that's all in there. So now I'm going to click OK. The result, it feeds in as opposed to as it is in the cell there, and it just lists the 3 items. It makes the 3 items appear as the pick list. So there you got Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and Sao Paulo. We can also change this. If I change it to Japan, the cities, let me just delete that as well because that's confusing me. We choose Japan there and it gives me the 3 cities that are in Japan, which we can see there. If I go to France, then obviously we get the 3 French cities as well. So we could have left that offset formula in there and then referred our list to that range of cells. But the problem with that is I've set this data up so every country has 3 cities, whereas using it in this formula here, in fact, I know these aren't right, but if I just overwrite all of those with Australia, if I change this to Australia, then all of those cities will now appear regardless of how many there are, because it's calculating how many there are each time. Okay, so that is an excellent little trick. If I go back into data validation, you can see that whole formula is there. So it's tricky to sort of follow within that formula. It does sometimes help if you put it into a cell and you make sure it works and you get that list out. Once you've then confirmed it works, you can just copy and paste it straight into your data validation. So that is a great trick, and you can use it dependent on previous selections as well. The only thing to watch out with it is if you haven't selected a country, you won't have a pick list appear in the city because it's dependent on having a match in column E. So as well, if we put gobbledygook in there, it won't let us because we've got data validation in. But again, if it didn't match and it couldn't find any matches, you're not going to get a list up there. So quite often that will be sort of an issue that clients will raise with me and say, oh, there's no pick list appearing. And it's always because it's dependent. So they have to choose the country first for that pick list to appear. So there's not an issue with it. It's just the process that they have to go through. So I hope you found that useful. And if you need any more help from me, please do reach out. Thank you.